Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brice Pacheco. I am the Fellowships Advisor here at Beyond Barnard, and today I'll be doing a quick fellowships overview for this semester, spring 2025. So you might be wondering, what are fellowships? Fellowships is a really broad term that covers a wide range of experiences. That can mean funding, tuition, research opportunities, but most importantly, the fellowships that I work with here offer many opportunities for you to develop your academic and professional interest, and they can be an amazing networking opportunity. Most of the programs that I manage in my portfolio offer you opportunities to do research or go abroad or a combination of the two. That can expand your horizons and complement your academic experience in a very low stakes way, without having to commit to a contract or a job or anything in the long term. Note that most of the fellowships that I'm going to talk about have deadlines that are a year in advance. So this session is going to be focused on fellowships that are open between now, we're in March through October of 2025. And all of these are for folks to go abroad in 2026. So while there are many, many other opportunities that are listed in our fellowships database that I'm going to show you how to use towards the end of the presentation, know that I'm going to be focusing on what we call the fall fellowships. Our approach for finding a fellowship, it's particular here at Beyond Barnard, because rather than focusing on what's out there, like I mentioned, we have a fellowships database of over, 250 entries with opportunities. Just looking at everything that you could qualify for can be rather overwhelming. So we really want to encourage you to see and think, how is it that you fit within specific criteria, and look for opportunities that align with your goals, your interests, and professional aspirations. Here are some of the questions that I encourage you to start thinking now and definitely think about before we have a one-on-one meeting, such as considering what is it that you want to accomplish over the next semester, over the next year, or just before you graduate. To give you an example, we have fellowships for language learning, for instance. So if you need to complete a language requirement, and you're still early on as a freshman or sophomore, you could apply for some of these opportunities and take advantage of both fulfilling the language requirement and living abroad for a short period of time. Also, thinking what type of experience you would find most valuable and productive is important. If you're someone that enjoys being part of a cohort, some study abroad experiences might be best suited for you rather than independent studies or things where you're going to be on your own. And I think it's important to be honest with ourselves about what is it that you're ready for, what's your work style, and what is it that you're hoping to get out of the specific experience as you approach the search. This is not only going to narrow down your options, but it's also going to give you a lot of clarity, and it's going to just facilitate the process of preparing an application. So there's a lot of myths about what fellowships are and what they're not. And I would love to spend the first half of this session just talking a little bit about some of these myths. And for each myth that I tell you, I'll offer sort of the data that we have here at Beyond Barnard, as well as our approach to how we problem solve and how we address these concerns. Before I delve into that, does anyone that's present here have any myths that you've heard that you want to volunteer or maybe type out in the chat, and I'll read them out loud? And for those of you watching the recording, really think what really motivated you to join in today, and what are some of those preconceptions that you have about what fellowships are or are not. All right. see anything coming in yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into our first myth, which is that fellowships are just way too competitive and it's not worth it to put in the time and effort because the chances of actually getting in anything is just way too low. Well, I'll tell you, they are very competitive. And we also have an amazing track record. You might have heard about a program called Fulbright. That's the logo that we have at the bottom. And our current statistics is 1 in every 3 partner applicants that goes through the process is a Fulbright recipient. We have been named a top producing institution for 8 years in a row. And for the past 4 cycles that I have been working here at Barnard, I have worked with an amazing number of students and alum that have put in amazing applications forward and have been all over the world. This year, we currently have folks in Asia, in Europe, Latin America. We have people in Southern Africa, Mozambique, really all over the place. And it's not only an amazing accomplishment just because of the numbers, because of what they're doing, but it's just an advantage because you have an amazing network of recent alum that would be very, very happy to talk to you and share about their experiences and support you in the application process, which is something that I'm going to continue to develop on, just the value of this network. Myth number 2, you have to write a lot. I don't really know how to write all these things that are part of an application. Well, you'd be surprised that most of these applications, and arguably what makes them the hardest, is that they're very short. Rhodes, which is one of the most selective scholarships currently for US students, has only one essay of 1,000 words. And to give you a sense, 1,000 words is about a page and a half, single space. So it's really not that long. Most of these fellowships will ask you to write a personal statement. And the hardest part about the writing, it's not necessarily how extensive they are, but how intensive the process can be, how many drafts you have to turn around, how much feedback you have to receive, and how much you have to work on your own writing to be of quality and to be up to par. And that can be the thing that can be most worrisome. In addition to the essays that you have to write, you're gonna need recommendation letters. Most applications require 3. There's a handful of them that require only 1 or 2, but for the most part, 3 is a standard number, and up to 5 letters, or 8 in the case of Rhodes. And these letters need to be detailed, and they need to highlight both your academic and leadership and community engagement aspects of you as a person. Especially because the essays are so short, you need to be able to have people that know you really well and that can speak in depth about the things that you have accomplished to support your application. That's why here at Beyond Barnard, and this is one of the things that you would talk with me in one of our first meetings, we really focus on building relationships with faculty and staff and people that you're working with through internships, through volunteer work, and really developing and strengthening those relationships. So when you are thinking of applying for fellowships or for jobs in the future and you need these recommendations, you have a broad pool of people that you can consult and really count on them to support in your application. Number 3, and this is one of my favorites. There's not a fellowship for people like me or for what I'm thinking about or the project that I'm currently interested in doing. I beg to differ. This is not an exhaustive list of the fellowships. For those of you who are watching live, feel free to screenshot this slide, but you can also readily access them in the fellowships database. But there are pretty much fellowships for everything, from educational costs both for undergrad, which are slimmer opportunities, but there are some, to graduate school on things like Truman, Knight Hennessy, Fulbright. If you want to get international experience, that's the area that I have the most to offer you. Um, Anywhere, again, from Europe, Asia, the Pacific, Africa, Latin America, you name it. Like I mentioned, we're really strong on the research portion of things. So things like Fulbright, the Gaither Junior Fellows, the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program are big staples in our office. But there's really lots of opportunities for you to explore different interests and areas of your academic and professional development through fellowships. What's really important is to reach out early enough. I'm glad that you are joining this session either now or later on through the recording. And I invite you to just start looking up these. Just get a sense of what's out there and what are the things that you're interested in, and come meet with me. I'll give you a sense of how the timeline works in a little bit, but it's never too early to just start a conversation. After being here for 4 years, I am seeing the first class graduate that I've been working with them since freshman year, and it's such a rewarding experience because many of them met me um, when they were just starting a Barnard, just like I was, and we were talking about internal opportunities. And this past year, I worked with a handful of them applying for fellowships to go abroad, to do grad school, to do research, or even other prospects in their near future for their professional life. So building on this relationship and exploring the opportunities is always a good idea. Number 4, you need a 4.0 GPA. Or the flip side of this that I have heard sometimes is that if you're academically successful, the merit fellowships will find you. You don't have to look out for them. This is simply not true. Of all the fellowships that I mentioned, they all have different requirements. Some of them do require that you have a specific GPA, that you have an academic record that stands out. But think that out of a pool of hundreds and maybe thousands of applicants, everyone has to meet those requirements, right? Everyone's going to have a 4.0 GPA. What are the things that can make you stand out? And this is one of the places where Barnard really shines in these applications, because all of you are very engaged and very involved in clubs and extracurriculars or as part of leadership on campus. So really think of how these experiences continue to support your development and how they make an application whole, more holistic. There are some fellowships that are very focused on community engagement and leadership. Fulbright, for instance, is really focused on cultural exchange. So having community and leadership experiences is going to position you very, very well. As well as communication skills. Like I said, everyone is going to have to write an essay, and many of these fellowship applications do have an interview component or some sort of public speaking component. Recording videos is becoming popular. So you're going to have to be able to communicate your interests and your plans in a productive way. So really think about what are the spaces that you can develop those skills to feel more comfortable using them. And lastly, and I would argue that the most important thing is fit. Like I said in the beginning, there are many, many opportunities out there, but if you're looking for something and you're trying to shapeshift to sort of fit their criteria and just get funding, this is going to be a harder battle for you. You really should focus on what is it that you're hoping to do and then looking for opportunities. The goals and aspirations ought to align with the values and the mission of the granting institution for this to be a productive engagement. I see a question in the chat. Is it too late to be thinking about fellowships as a junior? Not at all. Now's the best time, I think. If you are interested in applying for postgraduate opportunities, we should meet in the spring semester of your junior year, because most likely you will be working with these applications for opportunities are close in the fall. We'll start working with them at the end of the spring semester and through the summer. So definitely not too late. Now's the time to set up an appointment. Happy to answer any other questions through the chat. So if anything, what I want you to walk away from today is, sure, not all fellowships are for everyone, but also this process is not a one-off. It's cyclical. Like I said, I have built relationships with students that are, apply for something in their first year that were not successful, then did summer programs, and they have built sort of this culture and this cycle of applying for different opportunities. And now they're much more comfortable just getting feedback, organizing themselves. And I think there is more value in the application process than anything else. Of course, we want you to get the money. We want you to go abroad. We want you to do the experience. But the writing and feedback skills that you develop through writing and getting applying for fellowships, you will develop awareness about deadlines. You'll engage in difficult conversations and challenging and thought-provoking discussions about, what are your goals, defining your interests. You'll connect with faculty, which is always a good investment of your time. So really, if nothing, engage in the process as a form of, again, supporting your academic development. I'll pause now before I go into the actual fellowships that I want to highlight, and that's a very brief portion of this. If there's any questions, feel free to dump them in the chat or raise your hand. I don't see any questions here, so I'm gonna keep it moving. And first off, I want to highlight these two opportunities that are specifically for sophomores and juniors, and actually also open to first-year students, which are the Critical Language Scholarship, which I mentioned briefly in the beginning, and the Gilman Scholarship. These are two opportunities that offer funding for you to go abroad to do an experience. The Critical Language Scholarship specifically, it's to learn a language, and they send you to where the language is spoken natively. So it's a full immersion experience. Over 10 weeks, you have a cohort of students that travel with you and do everything together. You have a host family in country, and you sign a language pledge for the time that you're there. And it's truly a transformative experience. You can do this at any point in your undergraduate career, again, from first year to seniors. Even if you're a graduating senior, you can apply for this in November of your senior year to do it immediately after graduation. The counterpart to the Critical Language Scholarship, and I don't have it here because the deadline just passed, is the Boren Scholarship, which is also for language learning. But if you don't enjoy sort of the intensive nature of the language learning over the summer, the Boren allows you to be abroad for up to a year to learn a language and take other classes at a university abroad. So it's very, very similar in the purpose. What's different is sort of the style of it, which is what I mentioned, is it being part of a cohort important to you, or do you enjoy just being on your own and being able to pace yourself? There's fellowships that address the same goals in different formats. The Gilman Scholarship has two deadlines per year. One is in March, it's quickly approaching, and the second one is in October. And the beauty of the Gilman is that they offer up to $7,000 to study abroad. You can do this over a semester, so fall or spring, or over the summer. Over the summer, it applies to internships. So if you happen to land an internship in Italy, or in Colombia, and you need to supplement funding for it to be able to participate, you could apply for a Gilman scholarship. Again, it's available at all levels as an undergraduate. However, there are specific financial aid requirements that you need to qualify for, so be sure to speak with me and check on the website. Next up, I have sort of the big slot of fellowships for the fall. Again, feel free to screenshot or just note down these. I'll show you how to access their web pages next. But this is what we call the big fall fellowships. These programs are what I work on from March through October, both in recruitment and workshops, individual advising, and a plethora of resources that we have for you. First up is Fulbright. Fulbright funds a full year abroad post-graduation. You can apply as a senior or as a recent grad. They don't have a GPA requirement, and you can do one of three things abroad. You can either conduct research on your own, any type of research of your interest, from the humanities to science. I have worked with people in astronomy, people studying language. I did a Fulbright myself to study immigration in the Caribbean. So really open to any field. You could also obtain a master's degree in select countries, notably in Europe, Australia, Taiwan, and some countries in Central America offer this option, not everywhere though. And the most popular one, which is most likely the one that you might have heard about, is the English Teaching Assistantship, commonly called the ETA, in over 140 countries. Some countries require that you speak a language to go teach or do research there, some others don't. So when thinking about how to prepare for a Fulbright or how to prepare for any of these opportunities, you might want to look at other fellowships. You know, these are buildings, stepping stones that you can continue to build. You know, you need a language, so you can go learn it through a critical language scholarship, through the support of a Gilman, so you're better positioned for something in the future. The National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which is a mouthful, offers funding for research-based master's or PhD in STEM fields. Their definition of STEM is quite broad and includes things that might not typically be considered STEM, like anthropology, economy, and such. So if you are in a sort of hard social science, I'd encourage you to look through their page and see if it falls in there. And you can apply at various points up to 2 times. So you can apply as a graduating senior if you're going into grad school the following year, or you can apply as a first year or a second year grad student, but not more than 2 times total. You do need to be a US citizen, both for the NSF GRFP and the Fulbright US student program. Funding for the NSF GRFP is up to 3 years for grad school. The Knight Hennessy Scholars Program funds a graduate degree at Stanford University in California. This is open to US citizens and international students, and they focus on leadership and commitment to service in the future. But they would basically pay for any degree, independently if it's a master's degree, business school, MD, PhD, med school, you name it. In fact, we are hosting an information session with a Knight Hennessy representative on April 1st. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'll share the registration link after this meeting. And lastly, the UK Ireland Awards, Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, and Gates. These are 4 fellowships that offer funding for a graduate degree at different universities in the UK and Ireland. Rhodes is at Oxford University. Marshall is any university in the UK, but Oxford and Cambridge. Mitchell used to be for funding at any university in Ireland. I say used to because it's been put on pause since last year. We're hoping that it reopens for this 2025 application cycle. And the Gates is specifically for Cambridge University. These are fellowships that offer funding for graduate degrees, but they're really looking at people that have significant leadership and or service. They're looking for sort of the rock star, the people that are going to make this world a better place. And you need to have strong letters of rec that can assess oh my gosh, support that. You can apply as a senior. So if you're a junior, now's the time to meet with me to start a process of this. Or as a recent grad, most of these have a timeline that you can apply up to 2 years after graduation. The Gates does not require US citizenship, and Rhodes has 32 constituencies that you could apply through, depending on where you're from. The US is included. Any questions so far? I have a question. Does it have to be in the US? Are you referring to the NSF GRFP? If so, yes. It has to be a PhD program here in the US. If you're looking for funding abroad in STEM, I think Fulbright could be a good option. And we can talk more about that. Like I said, this is not an extensive list, an exhaustive list of all the opportunities that we have. We have a fellowships database that it's searchable. So on this left-hand side, you can actually type in anything that you're interested in or your discipline, or if you want to go somewhere specific in the world. Any special considerations like citizenship, ability requirements, that sort of thing. And it's a great tool to do sort of like a first search before our first meeting, so you get a sense of what's out there. What does the application timeline look like? It varies, but I think that you can start looking into these things as early as a year before. It's never too early to start gaining experience in the area that you're looking into and creating a network, connecting with professors and potential letter writers. I would say that about 2 to 6 months before the deadline, it's a good time to have a first meeting. Again, if you're thinking that you want to do something post-graduation and you're a junior now, now's the time to meet with me. These applications are going to be due in October, and the deadline is going to be upon us very, very quickly. Between commencement, summer internships, move-in, back to school, it goes by very, very fast. So definitely take advantage of the resources that we have for you here that include both workshops, individual advising meetings, and a lot of information sessions that I'll share about with you next. The month or two before the deadline is a time when you start asking for letters of recommendation. You want to give people enough time to write these, especially if you're applying in the fall, because a lot of people go abroad or go on vacation over the summer. So you want to give them enough notice. Working on your drafts starts around this time. And if there's an institutional review process, it'll happen about a month before the deadline. From there on, you're responsible for sharing drafts with your recommenders, meeting with me, request transcripts, get final feedback until you submit your application, ideally the day before the deadline. So it's really a year-long process. We're here for you. Like I said, specialize in fellowships, and these that I spoke with you are only just a couple of them. You can schedule an advising appointment with me on Handshake, or you can email me. This is my email on the screen. I will warn you, if you are interested in Fulbright, don't make an appointment with me just yet. The application doesn't open until March 31st, so we have about a month where what we can do is rather limited. I invite you to register for our Fulbright kickoff session, which is on April 2nd and 3rd. There's gonna be a virtual version and an in-person version here at the Beyond Barnard office. And by then we'll have information about the awards and about what this application process is gonna look like. So if that's your interest, don't jump into the appointment just yet. Just start perusing, start looking through the website, Fulbright website, to where you would like to go. Talk to your friends and plan to come to one of these sessions, and let's meet in April instead. Thank you so much. For those of you who are watching the recording, thank you for joining. And for those of you who are here live, I'll take your questions now.